Spanning the entire Kerch Strait, from the Taman Peninsula in Krasnodar Krai to Crimea's Kerch Peninsula, the Crimean Bridge is one of the crowning jewels of President Vladimir Putin's accomplishments. It's both a symbol of both his success in annexing Crimea and his own prestige, and it was just wrecked by a huge explosion thanks to a Ukrainian drone. The Ukrainian underwater drone Marichka just hit the Crimea Bridge, causing a huge explosion that forced the bridge to shut down. This is another warning to Putin. Ukraine's drones are getting so good that they can circumvent the layered defenses he's creating around Russia's most valuable targets. The War Zone, or TWZ, was among the first to break the story, reporting on June 3rd that Ukraine's SBU had carried out a devastating attack that it claims was several months in the making. The target, a $3.7 billion bridge that links Russia directly to the Crimean Peninsula. Also known as the Kerch Bridge, the Crimean Bridge is a marvel of Russian engineering. Spanning 12 miles, it's actually a pair of parallel bridges, one of which is designed for regular road traffic and the other containing a railway that allows Russia to shuttle military hardware between Krasnodar Krai and Crimea quickly. Russia can't hide the fact that its prized bridge was just struck. Ukraine's SBU has already released the footage. In a 10-second clip shared to X, we see the basics of what happened. The footage starts with a view of one of the Crimean Bridge's pillars. That only lasts for a couple of seconds before a massive explosion sends a huge plume of smoke into the air. Accompanying the footage is what appears to be a photograph of the aftermath, which shows 4 people inspecting a damaged guardrail that has collapsed onto one of the Crimea Bridge's roads. That footage is interesting. Closer examination shows that it doesn't appear to have been shot by one of Ukraine's reconnaissance drones. The camera is too steady, and we don't hear the telltale buzzing in the background. Instead, TWZ speculates that the footage comes from the Crimean Bridge's CCTV security feed, suggesting that Ukraine has found a way to hack into Russia's most sensitive security systems. We can't say that for sure. The SBU isn't talking. At least it's not talking about the footage. What it has told us, via a post to its Telegram channel, is that it can confirm that it struck the bridge. The SBU conducted a new, unique special operation and struck the Crimean Bridge for the 3rd time, this time underwater, the post says. The operation lasted several months. SBU agents mined the supports of this illegal facility, and today, without any civilian casualties, at 4:44 a.m., the first explosive device was activated. There are a couple of interesting things about this post. First, the SBU tells us that this is the 3rd time it struck Putin's prized bridge. It also makes mention of a first explosive device. We'll come back to both points later. But for now, the SBU also explains how it pulled off this remarkable attack. It appears that it used an underwater drone to sneak up on the support pillar it struck. The drone was loaded with explosives. The underwater supports of the piers were severely damaged at the bottom level. 1,100 kilograms, about 2,425 pounds, of explosives in TNT equivalent contributed to this, the SBU declared. In fact, the bridge is in a state of emergency. TWZ says that it's been unable to independently verify the accuracy of the SBU's report, but perhaps it doesn't need to. The video footage and photographs from the scene show us that the Crimean Bridge has been damaged. TWZ also says that it has been able to geolocate the footage to determine that Ukraine carried out this operation on the southeastern pylon of a section of Russia's bridge designed to allow ships to pass through. That section is on the Sea of Azov side, meaning that Ukraine may have had a dual purpose of shutting down the bridge and forcing Russia to divert any ships sailing into or out of the Sea of Azov. That wasn't the end of the assault. We mentioned earlier that the SBU claimed that the initial explosion was just the first. Around 10 hours later at 3 p.m., Ukraine launched a second strike using sea drones against the same portion of the bridge. That's according to the Romanov Light Telegram channel. The Ukrainian Crimean Wind Telegram channel confirmed this second strike, noting that nearby residents heard the sound of more explosions, prompting Russia to send a chopper into the skies. A helicopter was launched into the air and is flying around the coastline along the strait, the channel said. There is panic in Kerch Publix. We also mentioned that this isn't the first time that Ukraine has targeted the Crimean Bridge. There have been 2 other incidents. In October 2022, around half a year after Putin launched his illegal invasion of Ukraine, Ukraine struck the bridge in an attack that caused a massive fire that engulfed several Russian train cars. At the time, TWZ speculated that the fire could have been caused by an accident, but the timing was too coincidental to make that particularly likely. The attack happened the day after Putin's 70th birthday, and just 1 week after Russia claimed it had successfully annexed 4 regions of Ukraine. And if any doubt remained, fueled by President Volodymyr Zelensky claiming that he did not order it when speaking about the strike, that doubt was dispelled in July 2023. That's when Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Defense, Hanna Maliar, confirmed that Ukraine had conducted the strike with the help of the SBU in order to break the logistics of the Russians. That confirmation may have come because Ukraine carried out its second Crimean Bridge attack in July 2023. This time, the SBU was happy to confirm that it had carried out a strike against the bridge using one of Ukraine's then new uncrewed surface vessels, or USVs. Sailing around 200 miles from Ukraine's nearest coast to the bridge, the attack damaged a portion of the road side of the bridge, with Russia claiming that Ukraine had killed 2 motorists and injured the young daughter of another. What we see here is an evolution of Ukraine's approach to the Crimean Bridge. It was wary of admitting responsibility for the October 2022 attack for fear of crossing one of Putin's red lines. These were lines Russia put in place that, upon being crossed, would lead to an escalation of the war. Ukraine hid its involvement from both Putin and its allies to prevent that escalation. By July 2023, it was becoming clearer that Putin's red line talk was nonsense and that he was going to escalate regardless of what Ukraine did, meaning the SBU was happy to take credit for the July 2023 attack and the one it had conducted months prior. Now, in June 2025, Ukraine is actively targeting the Crimean Bridge and is happy to tell everybody, especially Putin, about the damage it's causing. What makes the June 3rd attack even more impressive is that Ukraine had to circumvent an array of Russian defenses to make it happen. As TWZ reports, Russia has ramped up the active defenses surrounding the Crimean Bridge as a response to the first 2 attacks. Those defenses include helicopter patrols, ships patrolling the water's surface near key points of the bridge, and even on-bridge surveillance. Russia has also installed additional anti-air defenses around the bridge and even has anti-diver interdiction measures in place. Not even the cars driving along the Crimean Bridge are safe. Russia has implemented enhanced vehicle screening to ensure Ukraine can't sneak any operatives onto the bridge. The SBU managing to overcome all of these defenses makes the June 3rd strike even more impressive. The unit's commander, Lieutenant General Marichka, oversaw the operation and was quick to heap plaudits onto his team. God loves the Trinity, and the SBU always brings what it has conceived to the end and never repeats itself, Marichka roared in a statement shared to Telegram. Previously, we hit the Crimean Bridge twice in 2022 and 2023, so today we continued this tradition underwater. No illegal Russian facilities have a place on the territory of our state. Therefore, the Crimean Bridge is an absolutely legitimate target, especially considering that the enemy used it as a logistical artery to supply its troops. Marichka capped his statement with a simple declaration: Crimea is Ukraine, and any manifestations of occupation will receive our tough response. The message is clear. The Crimean Bridge shouldn't exist in the first place, and Ukraine will do everything in its power to take it out. As for Russia, it doesn't have much to say about the attack. The Russian Defense Ministry doesn't appear to have made an official statement, likely because it doesn't want to reveal that the defenses it's worked so hard to build around Putin's prized bridge couldn't stop Ukraine. We do know that the bridge was closed for several hours in the wake of the attack, with the Russian authorities claiming this was due to an inspection via the Crimean Bridge Operational Information Telegram channel. Motor vehicle traffic on the Crimean Bridge has been resumed, the channel posted at around 9 a.m., which is about 4 hours after Ukraine's attack. There are no difficulties in accessing the inspection points on either side of the Crimean Bridge. The Romanov Light channel we mentioned earlier also suggested that Ukraine failed to cause as much damage as it would have liked. The support was inspected this morning. It was not damaged, the channel said. We are waiting for information from the services, who leaked the video and the frame from the cameras. Even if the damage was minor, Ukraine managed to pull off something special with its June 3rd strike on the Crimean Bridge, and that leaves us with 2 questions. How did Ukraine pull this off, and why does it keep attacking this particular bridge? We have a hint for the first answer from Marichka's claim that Ukraine carried out this attack underwater. That tells us that Ukraine didn't use the unmanned surface drones that it had used in the past, or conduct a direct missile strike against the bridge. Instead, it's believed that Ukraine leveraged its new Marichka drone to strike the Crimean Bridge. That claim comes from several sources, including the Economic Times and United 24 Media, though Ukraine hasn't confirmed or denied the use of Marichka. If Marichka was used, it's another example of Ukraine sending a message to Putin. It now has submersible drones that can make their way through the Black Sea and beyond to strike at the heart of Russia's military operations. Marichka is an impressive drone, measuring around 19.6 feet long, which makes it incredibly difficult for ships with even advanced anti-submarine radars to spot. The drone is believed to be capable of traveling up to 621 miles without the need to refuel. We mentioned earlier that the distance between the Crimean Bridge and Ukraine's nearest coast is around 200 miles, meaning Marichka has plenty of miles left in the tank once it reaches the bridge to get a specific strike point. Ukraine has designed Marichka to be a multi-purpose drone, meaning it's capable of the sort of direct attacks we saw on June 3rd, along with carrying out reconnaissance and transporting equipment. Perhaps the drone took advantage of its reconnaissance capabilities to scope out a weak point on the Crimean Bridge. After all, the SBU claims that this operation took several months to plan. Marichka may have been operating in secret right under Russia's nose for all of that time until Ukraine was ready to pull the trigger on its devastating attack. United 24 provides more details, noting that Marichka is designed so that it can loiter underwater, likely without draining its fuel supplies, for hours before it's ready to attack. It also points out the drone's developers, Ammo, claim that it's invisible to most radars, scanners, and sonar systems, which when paired with its standby mode makes the drone almost impossible for Russia to handle. Much of the rest of the information about the drone is classified, including its payload, which has only been dubbed as significant. However, we do know that Marichka has several internal compartments that allow it to function as both a transporter and a kamikaze drone. Plus, we know the cost, approximately $400,000. That means Ukraine now has a drone that has the potential to cause millions of dollars of damage to a $4 billion bridge at a tiny cost. It's all about the return on investment when it comes to Marichka and Ukraine, which doesn't have anywhere near the monetary resources Russia brings to bear. Ukraine has yet again innovated a low-cost way to damage Putin's war machine. We know that Marichka is operational. United 24 reported in September 2023 that Ukraine had unveiled the drone the previous August, even releasing footage to confirm that it had undergone successful trials. However, it's yet to be officially linked to any successful operations by Ukraine. That might be by design. Why would Ukraine want to let Russia know that it's successfully using an underwater drone to target Putin's most valuable assets? That would just give Russia more opportunities to research the drone and prepare for its eventual coming. Regardless, what we see with Marichka is a drone that appears to have been custom designed for attacks on the Crimean Bridge. And that brings us nicely back to the second question we posted earlier: why is this bridge a target? Again, Maliuk's statement gives us a hint to the answer, as he mentions that the Crimean Bridge is a vital Russian logistical artery. Avim points this out in a 2023 report, where it mentions that the bridge is capable of allowing up to 40,000 vehicles to pass across it every 24 hours. While those vehicles are mainly civilian, the road portion of the bridge certainly opens up possibilities for Russia to send armored vehicles into and out of Crimea as needed. More worryingly for Ukraine is the railway side of the bridge. As Avim says, Russia uses this bridge to transport its troops and large quantities of weapons, ammunition, artillery, and missile systems, heavily armored vehicles and tanks, as well as any other equipment that is necessary for Russia in the Kherson and Zaporizhia directions in the current aggression against Ukraine. CNN backed these claims in its own July 2023 article, stating that the Crimean Bridge is a vital artery for supplying Russia's war in Ukraine. However, it also notes that the bridge holds great symbolic importance to Putin. It was the physical expression of Putin's objective to take over Ukraine and bind it to Russia forever, CNN claims. And it's not wrong. Putin certainly seems to love the bridge. He held a massive convoy over the Crimean Bridge on its opening day, appearing to rub his achievement in Ukraine's collective face in the process. Though Putin now uses the bridge to transport Russian military equipment into Crimea and then onto Ukraine, he's also happy that its very existence serves as a slap to the Ukrainian face. Ukraine lost Crimea. The Crimean Bridge showcases just how little control the country has over a territory that it used to call its own. As recently as April 2025, Newsweek reported that Russia was also trying to strengthen security inside Crimea itself. While these efforts have been characterized as often uncoordinated and chaotic, they still highlight the importance of the Crimean Bridge to Putin's war plans. He needs that bridge to send the equipment Avim mentioned in its report to Crimea. Taking it away severs a vital logistical artery upon which Russia has relied ever since Putin launched his invasion. And that brings us to the aftermath of the June 3rd strike. Ukraine struck the Crimean Bridge after a series of other strikes against Russia that have caused severe damage to Putin's war machine. The highlight of those strikes was Operation Spiderweb, which was a complex drone operation inside Russian territory that targeted 4 air bases and succeeded in destroying 34% of Russia's strategic cruise missile carriers, according to Zelensky. Check out our video on how Ukraine managed to pull off this amazing operation if you want to learn more. The Guardian also reports that Ukraine managed to blow up a pair of railway bridges inside Russia on the same day that it attacked the Crimean Bridge, an act that Russia claims killed 7 people and injured 113 more by causing 2 trains to crash. All of these strikes come on the eve of Ukraine attending a special NATO summit at the end of June. Zelensky claims that Ukraine not attending that summit would have been a victory for Putin, according to The Guardian. So what we may be seeing with the Crimea Bridge attack, along with the others Ukraine has carried out in recent days, is Ukraine trying to build some leverage. It can now head into the NATO summit, showcasing just how much damage its operatives can cause to Russia using low-cost drones and other domestic measures. Imagine how much Ukraine could hurt Russia with even more support from NATO members, Zelensky may argue during the summit. As for the immediate aftermath, the BBC reports that the Crimea Bridge is now officially reopened, meaning Ukraine's June 3rd attack doesn't appear to have caused any lasting damage. Traffic has resumed and Ukraine hasn't been successful in severing Russia's logistical artery. Maybe that wasn't the point. Beyond the NATO summit we just mentioned, the Crimean Bridge attack may have served more as a warning to Putin, as Russia and Ukraine engage in several rounds of peace talks, and it's a warning that Putin should take seriously. After all, if Ukraine did use its Marichka drones to carry out the Crimean Bridge attack, that means Russia has a brand new threat to worry about. Putin insists on dragging along his illegal invasion, and it's a threat that's only going to grow. Beyond building more Marichka drones, Ukraine also has several other underwater drones in the development pipeline. That's according to United 24, which points out that the developers of the Toloka drone are still hard at work, built by a company called Brave One. The Toloka is a family of underwater drones that promises to be just as lethal as the Marichka. Though smaller than Marichka, these Toloka drones come equipped with thermal cameras, GPS antennas, and autonomous navigation systems, all of which makes them ideal for stealth missions conducted in the Black Sea, according to United 24. The first of those drones, the TLK-150, has already been unveiled and is believed to be capable of carrying a payload weighing up to 110 pounds up to 62 miles. Brave One is also working on the TLK-400 and the TLK-1000. The former is similar in size to the Marichka and can carry a 1,100-pound payload for 745 miles. As for the TLK-1000, it's believed to have a range of 1,242 miles and has a declared weight, including payload, of 11,023 pounds. Ukraine just sent a message to Russia on June 3rd. It's telling Putin that it now has underwater drones that are capable of striking where Russia can never detect them. And if Putin isn't serious about his claims that he wants to declare peace in the war, Ukraine has an entire army of these drones, all with different capabilities, that are in the pipeline and will soon be ready to devastate Russia. We mentioned Ukraine's NATO summit attendance earlier. That day may prove to be even more explosive than Putin could ever have dreamed of, as NATO leaders are set to declare that Ukraine will join. Discover more by checking out our video on the NATO declaration that there's no turning back when it comes to Ukrainian membership. And remember to subscribe to The Military Show if you want more videos covering the latest developments in the Ukraine war.